Hey everyone, my name is Ernesto and today I want to show you how I create props for my game. That includes all static objects that are in the background and are supposed to, dress the scene in some sort of way. I also thought about including interactable objects such as destructibles, so the classic barrel for example, but I think I'm going to do this in two parts and make one about the completely static objects and one about interactable objects that are supposed to, be destroyed for example, or be interacted with in some way, so that, the videos can be a little bit more precise and a little bit shorter. Let me know how you like this concept, or if you'd rather have one big video that contains all the information, because I'm not really sure what's the best way to go about this. I start all my modeling in Blender. That is what I use to do all my modeling, basically, as you probably know already. It's free, open source, and just very powerful. And before I start modeling anything, actually, I like to import a character, or the player in particular, something where I just know the height of in-game to give me a reference on how high the thing I'm building is supposed to be or how big it's supposed to be. It's just much easier to model something with an exact height reference instead of, putting it in-game, realizing you've made it much too big or much too small, and then having to go back and adjust the scale. So it's just very practical to just import something where you know how big it is, so you can model your props or your buildings to the exact right size right away. Also be sure to apply that scale if you're using Blender, because otherwise you might encounter some very weird scaling issues if you're not at 1:1:1 in the end, but like some very weird combination, something really big or really small, could lead to some issues. And I usually model all my objects as one solid object, so if we're talking about a building, for example, that is usually one solid piece. That is only the case though if everything fits on screen. So if you have an object that is bigger than one screen, then it can be useful to split that up into chunks, so you can just disable it when it's not on screen. But if we're talking about buildings that are completely on screen or can fit completely on screen, then it's usually just one piece in my case. Not always though. For example, I have buildings in the town the player starts in that have like boarded up windows, and you're supposed to find the villagers that lived there, and when they come back, I want those buildings to be restored, and those boarded up windows, they're not supposed to be boarded up anymore. So these boards have to be separated from the rest of the model so that I can disable them afterwards. I mean, that's pretty logical. So if you know that a certain part has to be interactable or, supposed to be disabled at some point, then obviously that has to be a separate object. Everything else can just be one piece. And I also try to reuse as much as I can. So if you have a certain type of window, for example, if you're talking about buildings, obviously you don't just want to copy paste the same window over all buildings, because the player will notice that repetition. But it's good to keep a similar style for all your windows so that they feel coherent and they feel like they belong in the same world. I have some instances where I'm using actually quite different windows, and I'm thinking about changing that still, because it doesn't really make sense that, a village that was probably built around the same time in the same world has like drastically different designs in it. That kind of breaks the illusion that this is like a coherent world we're living in. So it's good to think about using repetition in a way that encourages the player to, notice this as a whole world, not as just simple pieces you put together. And this is also kind of where making your own props or your own models in general really shines, is that you really have this opportunity to create something that really fits together. If you're using bought-in assets, obviously if you're talking about a photorealistic style, this doesn't really apply anymore. But when you're talking about stylized games, it's really hard to find something that fits aesthetically within your world perfectly. That probably doesn't really happen. It's not going to fit exactly. So if you're doing everything yourself, you really have that opportunity to think about what you're doing and also think about these small details, like do those windows fit together? Not just in that one building, but over a whole town, for example. And obviously the philosophy of reusing stuff is not just for buildings or windows. In this case, it's for all the objects that might be, reused at some point. So for example, in my village as well, I have these small tables and stools, and that is just one table and one stool that got copied and pasted around a bunch. It's also the same with my walls, for example. I talked about that a little bit already in my levels video, is that these are just pieces. So I have like a straight wall piece and an edge piece and an in-edge piece. And I'm just fitting these together, scaling them a little bit differently so that they don't seem like they're the same piece, just like similar pieces. And in this case, this works really well. I'm only having to really model 5 different pieces, but it seems like this was really made for this scene, even though, it wasn't. And for example, also I have different kind of walls, so it's really very practical to just mix and match and, fit them together, where I think, okay, it makes sense, for example, to have the stone wall here to kind of implicate that, this has been, people have been here and people have been trying to kind of, what's the English word for it? Put it on screen now. And we have these dirt walls that are just, untouched. And this is just one piece, but it kind of doesn't seem like it. You don't see the repetition. And that's very cool. I've often heard from people playing the games that it looks like I've used like a lot of different pieces, and I really haven't. So in this case, it's just so useful to know that players won't really notice much of that repetition. Obviously, if you overdo it, yes, they will notice, but you can get away with quite a lot of repetition. Just, scale a little bit, rotate a little bit, and you'll be fine. Okay, so let's go back to a little bit more general topic, because I kind of ran myself into a repetition corner there. If you look at all my models, that doesn't just apply to props, that really applies to everything. They are very low poly, but I don't really like that, low poly style. So kind of the assets you can buy are often like very chunky low poly. So I'm really trying to play on that edge where I can still smooth stuff for it to look smooth, but still use a very low poly count, just because I feel like I like the style, and it's just great for performance if you're just getting used to using as few polygons as possible. Even if you don't need it, even if your game is running fine, getting used to the workflow of just working with as few polygons as possible can be very, very helpful to just not even run into those performance issues in the first place. Obviously, you can go too low. I have a few points in my game where I'm looking at it now and I'm like, okay, yeah, maybe I should add a little bit more resolution to those. But that's much easier. It's much easier to add an edge loop or two somewhere instead of having to reduce that. If you're talking about like complex models, that can be quite painful, to decrease that resolution artificially afterwards. Also, if we're talking about resolution, let's quickly go into the topic of LODs. If you don't know what LODs are, LOD stands for level of detail, and it's a tactic where we use multiple versions of the same model with decreasing resolution, and we kind of swap them out the farther away from the camera they are. So if they're only taking up 5% of the screen, we swap to a lower resolution model, and if they're only taking up like 2% of the screen, we swap to an even lower resolution model. And this way, if we're having a game like from a third person or first person perspective, and you have like a lot, you can see very far, then it's possible to render a lot of objects, but don't have them render at full resolution, because otherwise your game would just, your computer would blow up at some point. But I'm not really using that. If you're making a third person or first person game, I would really advise you to look into that, because it's just saving you so much performance and it allows you to render so much more. But I'm not really using it. Why am I not using it? Because, well, I'm using a top-down camera perspective. And that really means everything that is on screen is pretty much the same distance away from the camera as everything else. So we don't really have a horizon, we don't have much distance at all. So there really isn't any distance to, reduce the resolution of anything. So it kind of doesn't really make sense in my case. The only thing I am doing to kind of reduce the performance impact of everything that is in the scene is Unity's occlusion system. That is actually very, very helpful. It uses, a grid-based system to disable all of the objects or not even render all of the objects that aren't in the camera's view. And that really saved me so much performance. It's incredible. You have to activate it, so it's not active by default, and you have to bake the information, same as the nav mesh, for example. But once you do it, it saved me like like my performance went up by like 50% or something. It's incredible. So if you didn't know about that, have a look into Unity's occlusion system. I might, if you want to, I can do a bigger video on the occlusion system itself as well. It really helped me a lot to just gain performance back and still have a lot of stuff in my scene. Okay, so once I am finished with my prop, whatever it is I'm modeling, I'm putting it from Blender into Unity, and I'm in a quite specific situation where I'm just using, basically one cell shader that I made myself. There are a few different versions, obviously, but it's one basic model, And so that allows me to not really have to worry that much about UVs or anything while modeling. I'm obviously still doing them because I'm using a noise map that, you would see those seams. I have a few positions where I also need to go back in and change it because you can see some seams. But in general, it's quite forgiving. So I'm just assigning, basic colors in Blender to get an idea of where, a certain color is supposed to go. And then I put it into Unity, and then I assign the correct color there. I don't really need to do much more to get it finished. I'm also here trying to reuse as much as I can. That is the great thing about just using colors and not textures, because everything that is geometry is actually geometry. We're not baking anything into textures. So that means I can reuse textures, or not textures, reuse materials a lot, everywhere actually. I have like a basic stock of materials, and I only try to expand that when it's absolutely necessary. Otherwise, it is just very helpful for staying in the same art style and staying in the same, color palette, to just reuse as much materials as possible. So each scene has their own, color palette, and I'm just trying to reuse as much as possible. And I can recommend it if you're doing a stylized game. Reusing stuff, especially materials, is very, very practical. So once we have it in the scene and materials applied, I'm just adding primitive colliders to stop the player from intersecting with it. Maybe, doing a little bit more complex shape if there's a door somewhere where the player is supposed to go through. But I'm never using mesh colliders. If you don't know, mesh colliders have a much, much bigger performance impact than, any of the primitive colliders. So if you can use primitive colliders in any way, please use them, Even making a shape out of several primitive colliders is still going to be much more performant than using one mesh collider. And then we're pretty much finished. Now the only thing left to do is, if it's a smaller prop, we can make a prefab out of it to reuse it even easier throughout the scenes, so that changing stuff is, just one click, or editing the one prefab. That obviously gets much more important once we're talking about interactable objects, so destructible objects, for example, or characters you want to interact with. There might be a lot of scripts on one of those objects, so it's obviously very useful. If you want to change a value on one of them, you'd only have to edit that one prefab. So please, if you're not using prefabs for some reason, take a look. Those are very, very helpful. And I think that's pretty much it. I wish you a wonderful rest of your day. I hope I covered everything. If you have any questions or any suggestions or anything else, please put them in the comments. I always read them. If you want to see more of this, feel free to subscribe, and I see you again in the next one. Probably that's going to be a small little devlog, because I pushed an update to the demo yesterday, and I kind of want to make, you know, a roundup of all the things I changed. All right, until then, I'll see you around. Bye-bye.